So as we heard Sabrina express, if there were millions on the table for the projected number one pick, guaranteed, like there is guaranteed millions for the projected number one pick in the NBA draft, well, that changes things. But we also hear her express no regrets and that money didn't even play a part in her decision to go back to the University of Oregon. And let's just be honest, that's because millions were not in the topic of conversation or even an option for her. So, what is she really missing out on? What is there really to lose? Why wouldn't I go back, get my education, and finish my degree? Tackle some more goals and milestones individually as a player. Tackle some more milestones and accomplish some more things as a team. Why not chase a national championship? We already.
Welcome back to an episode of Gas is Too Damn High. Yeah, man, we back. Welcome back to my YouTube, man. Subscribe, click the link, all that good shit. Okay, so if you've been hiding under a rock, Russia invaded the Ukraine, and it's a full-on war on Ukraine soil. The USA has sanctioned whatever that means Russia, which I'm pretty sure they don't give a fuck about, because they were planning to go to war for a little while now, so they done already done stockpiled on funds and all that kind of good stuff, so they ain't got to worry about supplement or help from the economy because they knew they was going to war. So anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about, right? So in the midst of all that, about a week before Russia invaded Ukraine, Brittney GRINER was arrested in Russia. Okay, so Brittney GRINER is a WNBA player, a star, probably like the top tier WNBA player, one of the top tier players at WNBA. If you had to, for people who don't watch the WNBA, which is 90% of humanity, she's the Giannis Antetokounmpo of the WNBA, kind of, I guess. Except she's from America. Also, people who don't understand, the WNBA players, the women play a WNBA season, which is about 36 games, not including the playoffs. Playoffs is a relatively quick process as well. Then they go overseas to supplement their income to other countries who patronize women basketball, and so they go and supplement their income. They actually more than supplement their income because most of their income actually comes from uh, playing overseas in most cases. So basically, the WNBA is kind of supplementing their income, but that's another story. All right, so Brittney Griner was arrested. Brittney Griner was arrested a week before the invasion of Russia. The invasion of Ukraine. Um, it wasn't really a story. No, it didn't really make any headlines or news. But of course, when the internet makes things important, when they decide to make it important, so it came out. I think like last week that she had been arrested, and she basically got arrested. Uh, from my understanding, is she's coming into Russia. She's at the airport, and the drug sniffing dog sniffed some drugs on her, and basically she had a cartridges that had I guess cannabis oil in it, which is an illegal offense, smuggling drugs into a country. It's essentially what that is. And in a lot of places in America, it's illegal to have that kind of paraphernalia at the airport anyway. So, but of course she makes probably like $1 million in Russia, and she goes there, and she plays for Russia every year basically for like the past 7 years. So she's essentially in a lot of ways a dual citizen because she plays over there every year. She has a house there. She makes 7 figures there, makes basically all her income there. Then comes back to the WNBA and makes about 220,000, like $250,000, playing in the WNBA. Okay. The reason why all those details are important is because there's been an influx of talking heads who are saying and this conversation always arises and comes up. It's really an irrational or illogical argument to begin with, but the internet is irrational and illogical sometimes. It's all emotion fueled kind of things, or narratives being pushed. But anyway, it's the narrative is, if she was paid more, or actually, to quote a lot of sources, if she was paid what she was deserved in the WNBA, she wouldn't have to play overseas, and so none of this would ever happen. Eliminating all accountability of Brittney Griner actually having drug paraphernalia and getting caught and getting arrested under her own merit, right? But anyway, for a lot of reasons, that's a ridiculous argument of the accountability part of it. Uh, the accountability part of it is a major part of it. But also just because the conversation about women being paid in the NBA, especially somebody like Brittney Griner who makes $221,000 for 36 games. That the games are 40 minutes, something like that. I'm not an expert. I don't watch stuff maybe like most of you, but she makes $221,000. That equates to about $6,500 an hour. Right? See, the disservice that the WNBA and the people who are championing the WNBA and pushing this kind of narrative is they do themselves a disservice because they compare themselves to the NBA, which is not fair, and it's a dishonest and disingenuous comparison, because the reality is the NBA makes somewhere in the neighborhood of about $6 to $9 billion per year. $6 to $9 billion per year. Majority of that money comes from TV deals, some from some jersey sales, concessions, ticket sales, but the ticket sales and concessions, jersey sales, those kind of things on the lower end of the spectrum when it comes to them generating $6 to $9 billion per year in revenue. When the WNBA, on the other hand, generates about 60 million on a good year, so 60 million to 6 billion on the low end. We'll say 60 million to 6 billion. That's a very disproportionate number. Here's the kicker as well. The WNBA costs about $70 million to run. So if you do the math, if your math is mathing like my math is mathing, they actually lose about $10 million a year. They're actually hemorrhaging money. It's actually a bankrupt business. So just to break even, the NBA, which is not a subsidiary or only related loosely to the WNBA because it is professional basketball, and some owners have dual ownership, but they supplement the WNBA's income so that they break even. So about $10 million a year. On some reports, $1 million to each team. So by that metric, any woman WNBA player who makes $1 is overpaid. Nowhere on this earth would someone expect to make more money than the company that they actually are employed by will make in a year. So the numbers don't add up, so I start with that point before we even get to the point of the whole argument, the whole debate, because people using words like deserve. Oh, well, women deserve to make more money, or they deserve to make as much money as the men. How do you use a word like deserve when you don't generate the income? You don't generate the eyes. You basically don't bring in the meat to eat. How do you deserve more? How? I mean, but the reality is, especially on the internet now, it's not fueled by or logic or wanting to form a true understanding, but it's more about emotions and feelings and I feel like this. We all feel like we deserve to make more money, but if especially in terms of business, if we can't if we can't justify the dollar amount or an increase in pay, then you don't get an increase in pay. And in terms of Brittney Griner, she made a poor decision. And of course, I know how the internet works and how people work. So this was just a way to reignite the conversation about equal pay, even though the average WNBA player now makes six figures. That's the average. They played 36 games. 36 games. That's a pretty damn good living. But when you compare it to the WNBA, it's doing them a disservice. And to compare it to the WNBA is not a fair comparison at all. It's two different businesses. It's actually two different products. It's not they play basketball is the only thing that they have in common. The entertainment value is different. I won't say which one's better. I obviously prefer the NBA. I like to see people dunk. I like to see people be faster, strong, Herculean, just supernatural human beings playing a sport. That's why we watch men's sports. It's like watching like a comic book to see the NBA. The WNBA is basketball and its fundamentals, but unless you're a die-hard basketball fan, you don't really care about fundamentals. You don't care about playing basketball the right way. You want to see abnormal Nephilim human beings doing supernatural, superhuman things. It's not the same game. It's not the same product. Doesn't bring in the same revenue. So to be asked to be paid equal to or even more at this point for a WNBA player or WNBA or women or people advocating for that is not even asking for equality. It's actually asking for preferential treatment. Actually, the opposite of equality is what you're asking for. But I don't know, man. I don't want no trouble though. The kid just black, man. Like and subscribe. Click the subscribe. Hit the notification bell. All that shit. Subscribe. YouTubers say do that. This kid just black, man. You do know that.